summer to help the fall run a lot smoother and the whole application process be easier for you guys. So you ready to start, Miss Sinclair? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Miss Sinclair. All you.
Okay. All right, so basically the first thing that you hopefully already have started upon is knowing where you want to apply in the fall. So if you haven't already, you can use some of these sites to research where you're going to apply. CapEx, you can do a college search, same with College Board, and really importantly, the individual college's websites. So once you find a list of where the places you are thinking about going, the next step is the college visits, which I'm going to talk more in depth about now. So last year we were in a place where maybe on-campus visits were not really a thing as much, but this summer it seems like most places will be able to have those. It's so important for you if you have the opportunity to go out and see these schools in person. They do have virtual campus visits, but again, you're only seeing what they're wanting to show you, and it's a virtual look at the school. So I would at least do the virtual campus, but if you can take some time this summer to go in person on each campus, you're really going to learn a lot about whether or not that school's a good fit for you. They're important because you can see the school in person. You're also seeing the surrounding area, what kind of town or city is it in. You're going to be learning about the school firsthand. Usually the tour guides are students who are currently there or just graduated from that school, so they'd really be able to give you an inside look of what it's like. And it really shows how interested you are in the school. So when you do put your application in and have gone there in person, it shows that you really are interested. So if you do go on a college visit to a school, you may wonder, well, what kinds of things should I be asking? We will put this link to the actual article, but there are different questions that you can ask the tour guide or an admissions officer, whoever you're meeting with, about what kind of academic programs they have, what are some of the perks if you do very well in school, financial aid kinds of questions. Their graduation track record. Do they graduate their students in 4 years, 5 years? That's important to know. Academic supports, if you struggle at all, where can you get help? Outside opportunities like internships. And I think what a lot of people want to know is the student life questions. What kind of activities are there? Clubs are there? Things like that. What is the dining hall like? The food? All those kind of good things. I'm ready for the next slide.
That's what I was going to say. Just let me know when you guys are ready.
Sorry.
So let me move on. No, you're good. I didn't want to do it too soon.
Yes, I hear you. All right, so the other thing that I wanted to quickly touch on, which you may already know about being juniors already, is that we also have college visits traditionally at Calvert High as well. And I don't know how this is going to look next year exactly, but they will have representatives try to either virtually come to the school and meet with you, or they may come in person. We'll have to see how that goes next year. But this is a very important thing. If, as a senior, doing the college visits, when they come to Calvert High or virtually, you're really getting a chance to interact with the person who's most likely going to be reading your application. So it's a great way to really show your interest and get to know the representative that's there, because they're often the ones making decisions. And you can also get their information. So if you have a question, you can directly contact them and ask them that personal question, and you probably are you're going to have a better chance at getting the correct answer, and from the person who is going to be deciding whether or not you're getting into that school. College visits are important. Take this summer, take that list that you're creating or already created of your college choices, and try to visit as many as you can and making those final decisions. So when we come back to school, you have your list of schools that you're going to apply to. Thank you.
Mr. Verlich, you're up next. And you are muted, Mr. Verlich. You would think he would learn after a year of this.
I know. But after you've done all of your college visits and done your research, I guess then you're going to get to the point where you're going to actually start applying for colleges. And you really don't want to start doing that till probably after August 1st. I know a lot of the people in this meeting, you're probably on it thinking about what do you need to do. And if you would go ahead right now and try to apply to a college, you'd actually be applying for this upcoming fall. And you don't want to apply for this upcoming fall. You want to make sure it's for, I think it's the 2022-23 school year. So you want to make sure you wait till those applications are open. And I hate to say it, but there's no easy way to apply. You're going to have to roll up your sleeves and get on there and do the application and fill out a bunch of information, and some things to think about as you're doing that. I guess a big one is deadlines. College deadlines are a lot different than Calvert High deadlines. And as you start to research the different colleges and look at their websites, and that's really where you want to be looking, is at the individual college websites for the information with applications. You'll see they'll start laying out deadlines, and some are as early as maybe middle of October, but I feel like November 1st is a big deadline. December 1st is a big deadline. And then for some of them, you'll see it'll say rolling admission. And rolling admission means basically that the application is always open. So please be conscious of that. You'll notice there'll be fees, and some might be free. And I would encourage you, if you get something in the mail after you take a lot of times it happens after you take the SAT, you might get something in the mail called a preferred application from a college, and it'll say it's free. And it's like a one-page application. You fill it out and send it in. I would encourage you to take advantage of any of those free preferred applications. Because, and I don't know, but I feel like if they send that to you, they're pretty interested in you. And if you just fill out that one pager, a lot of times you get an acceptance at those schools. Applications are also going to have essays, and some essays are going to be tailored for specific schools. But as you do your research, you'll see a lot of them are sort of general. And as you write one essay, a lot of times you can sort of, tailor it to use for different applications. Another thing to think about is transcripts. And I know Ms. Ponte, I think, is going to talk a little bit about transcripts and letters of recommendations here, after me. And then the last piece to be thinking about is the application platform. And when I say that, I guess different schools, and this is, I guess, the part where it gets a little tricky, is not every school uses the same kind of application. So you have to take a look at their websites and see what kind of platform are they using. Some, when I say schools application, some colleges, you're going to go onto their website, like Towson is one we might get a chance to take a look at here in a minute. But for Towson, you're going to go onto their website, and you're going to apply right through Towson. You'll create an account with Towson. You'll put all your information into Towson's application. For other colleges, they're going to use sort of a clearinghouse kind of platform. One is Common Application that we see kids use. Another is Coalition. Another is SendEDU. And when I say clearinghouse, I mean it's sort of like a one-stop shop, and one that a lot of the colleges use these days. And probably if you have to choose between two, I would usually generally recommend Common Application if schools are using two. And I say that because Common Application is used by the most colleges that I've seen. I looked it up. Over 900 colleges use this one portal to submit your information. And as you do your research, you're going to see, and I find as we've transitioned to digital, more and more colleges are using the Common Application. You might have 10 colleges or 5 colleges, and they're all on the Common Application. So you fill out your application in one spot, you check the schools you want to apply to, and all of your information goes out to those schools, in one click. So you don't have to do 5 or 6 or 10 separate applications, or you don't have to request us to send 5 or 10 separate transcripts or letters of recommendation. So as you're doing that research, sort of keep in mind, and that might be some things that I know we'll give that out to you, and that's, I don't know if we have that somewhere in our presentation today. Maybe we can, share that with the kids, that sort of checklist of things to keep track of with colleges as far as, You know, make a list, your list of colleges, and then list what's the deadline, what's the cost, you know, what form of application platform do they use, and you could sort of track that and keep a chart and see, you know, when do I need to be working on certain schools, how much is it going to cost me, you know. So those are all things to be thinking about. I wanted to take a look now at maybe one of the, you know, websites. If we could click on Maryland, Miss Ponte, and we're going to go to the University of Maryland. And that's not to say you have to apply there, but it's an in-state school. And then we're going to click admissions, and then undergraduate, and then freshman. I think if you scroll down a little bit, should say freshman applicants. And applying to Maryland, and you could see, I don't know if we can make that a little bit bigger. Okay, there you go. But going down, you know, talks about a lot of the things here that you have to be conscious of too. And, you know, one is like, how can you apply? And it talks about with Maryland, you can actually use the Common Application or the Coalition, two of the platforms. Again, I would recommend Common Application just because more schools tend to use that. You know, is it test optional? If we could go down a little bit more here, talks about essays, application deadlines, you know, a little bit of everything that we mentioned. It talks about the fees in there, how much it costs, you know, and just something to mention as far as deadlines, like Maryland has two deadlines. They have a November 1st deadline, they call it like the preferred deadline, and then they have what's called the regular deadline, which is like January 15th or January 20th. Here's what we found out. Most kids that get in apply for that first deadline. And I don't know if it's still the case, but I can remember one year I talked to the University of Maryland representative who came to our school to meet with the kids. And I really recommend, like as Miss Sinclair, meet with those representatives because they're the actual people who decide whether or not you get in. But he said that 80% of the kids that got into Maryland that year apply for the first deadline. So if you wait and say, oh, I've got great grades and I'm a good student, I can wait till January, that's not necessarily the case. So I really can't emphasize enough, if there's an, you know, an early deadline and a later deadline, to try to make that early deadline, you know.
And sometimes too, that earlier deadline, like Towson calls it a priority deadline, I think, and that's a scholarship consideration deadline. So if you don't apply by that date, you don't get considered for any scholarships. So keep that in mind too. Earlier is better, even though you're always freaking out. It's better to do things earlier, I think.
Right, always. I would always try to do that. One other thing, and you refresh my memory, Miss Ponte, Miss Harris, Miss Sinclair, which one is it that, is it early decision is not binding?
Early decision is binding. Early decision is binding.
Okay, but early action is not.
Correct. If you do early action, that's fine. Early decision means you're making the decision. If they let you in, you're going there. And if you don't go there, there's a financial obligation.
Okay. All right, perfect. Someone has their hand up.
Yeah, I think. Okay, there you go. Okay.
William. Hey, if I can just chime in on that, I know, like you were talking about early action, that's really tied to a lot of the scholarships. And the STAMP Scholars is another great opportunity for a lot of students to consider. And the only way you can be considered for a STAMP scholarship, which is, by the way, like a full ride at the best award, is to apply early action. And, you know, STAMP Scholars is just one example of many scholarships. So if you're applying for early action, those schools are really looking at you for serious consideration for financial assistance and scholarships. You know, going for that regular deadline is definitely not the way to go, especially if you're really considering that school.
Right, I agree. I think definitely that a lot of the scholarships are the earlier deadlines. So, where are we at on time, Miss Ponte? Do I have time or?
I think we should probably move on so we don't.
Okay. I think that covers it. Does anyone have any questions about the application process right now? We're going to work with you a lot on that.
But I think the biggest thing, guys, to keep in mind is that every college wants something a little bit different and they want it by a different deadline. So it's very important that you are very organized when it comes to your college applications. And like Mr. Verlich talked about, there's a lot of different pieces in your application that don't just involve you. And let me click ahead so I can talk about the first part. So letters of recommendation are something that you're probably going to need. And these are written, of course, by other people, by teachers, by coaches, by your counselor, by your boss, different people on your behalf. So this is the part when you really have to be thoughtful about your time, because you may be a last minute person who's comfortable working last minute. But if you ask me or Mr. Verlich, we are like not procrastinators, Mr. Verlich and I. So if you ask us for a letter the day before you need it, it's probably not going to end real well. So you have to give us time, and your teachers and everybody, because keep in mind, your whole class is asking different people for letters of recommendation. So if you ask someone and say, hey, I need this by Friday, they may not be able to get it for you in that amount of time. So it's important to ask early. And truthfully, now is like the best time to ask people because you'll have plenty of time. And who to ask, I mean, sometimes colleges, and this is kind of where your college will come into play if you know where you're applying, sometimes they want a specific teacher. They want your junior year English teacher or your junior year science teacher. Sometimes they get that specific, and sometimes they leave it open-ended. I always tell my students a good rule of thumb is to ask 1 or 2 teachers who know you really well, and then ask your counselor. So in how to do this, and I'll show you guys, and forgive me, I don't have this pulled up ahead of time, so I'm gonna have to get there. And we have the letter of recommendation request form, and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like. And I know my Schoology looks different than yours, but if you click on the resources tab and then you scroll down, it's actually on here. So it's like a Word document that you can pull up. And oh, this looks so ugly. I'm going to try to download it and see what happens so you guys can actually see it.
Some of you may have been doing this with Mr. Morgan. He asked for this. If they have him as a teacher, they've been using this and working on it.
Oh, perfect. So this may look very, very familiar to some of you guys. And what it is it just tells the person who you're asking to write the recommendation letter, it just tells them a little bit more about like who you are and the things you've done and that kind of thing. I'll zoom in for Mr. Verlich's benefit. But anyway, and this just tells us a little bit more about you. And what you can do is you can fill this out one time on your computer and you can send this out to multiple people. So you don't have to fill this out 4 times to do it to 4 different teachers. You can just share it online. But this just gives us some more background about you. Don't stress too much about the questions. It just gives us a better idea of what makes you tick and some different things about your background and what you value and things like that. But this just gives people that background. So, and you'll notice at the top here, it talks about the date when the letter is needed. My one pet peeve is when students tell me they need it ASAP. Please do not write that. Tell me the date when your application is due. Write that down so that teachers know. And I can prioritize, like if I get 2 letter of recommendation requests on the same day and one person needs it 2 weeks from now and one person needs it a month from now, I know that I have to work on the person who needs it 2 weeks from now before I work on that person who needs it a month from now. So be thoughtful about that. And general rule of thumb when it comes to letters of recommendation is to give at least a 2-week notice. But like I talked about earlier, the more notice you can give, the better it is because you're probably going to get a better letter. So keep that in mind as well as you're asking for people. Ava asked, should we attach our resume with the letter of recommendation when we send it to our teachers? That's a great thing, and I'm going to talk about a resume in a minute, but that's a really great thing. But I wouldn't do your resume instead of this form because your resume is not going to be the exact same and give us the same information that's on this form, but that's definitely a great extra piece to give to your recommenders. And if you guys can't find this on Schoology, you can just email your counselor too, but it's under the resources on there. And again, now's a really great time to start asking about letters of recommendation. I kind of like went all over the place, I'm sorry. Another thing is too, so we talked about how to ask, we talked about filling out the form, and how to get your letters. So like Mr. Verlich talked about the Common App and Towson. Those were the 2, Common App in Maryland and Towson. Those were 2 examples he gave for applications. it's important to let your teachers know, or whoever you're asking for a recommendation, how they should send the letters to the places you need it. So let's say if you're applying to University of Maryland via Common App, how your recommendation letters are going to be uploaded is that you're going to add your counselor or your teacher, counselor and a teacher, they require a counselor and teacher recommendation, but you're going to add our information on the Common App, and Common App is going to send us an email saying, hey, this student is asking for a recommendation, please upload it. So once you add us, and please make sure you add people with ample time. But anyway, so that's how we'll send in your letter for you for, say, University of Maryland or another school on Common App. Now, Towson's a little bit different. They're going to want your recommender to actually email in their letter. So just make sure you communicate with anybody you ask for a recommendation about how they should get it, where it needs to go. And that's going to be, of course, different for every single school. So just make sure you're thinking about that and you're communicating with your recommenders. And also, too, a lot of students think that we write like letters specifically for one school. We don't. They're pretty general. So, I mean, when I write my letter, I'm writing it so I can send it to 5 schools or 7 schools or however many you're applying to. So if you like apply to one school and then 2 weeks later you're like, hey, Miss Ponte, send it to this school, it's not a big deal for me. So you just have to keep everybody informed as you go. Does anybody have any questions about letters of recommendation? And I'm telling you guys, like, this is a huge thing that you can get done now so you don't have to worry about it in the fall. So another thing I want to touch on is your transcript. So you guys, when you met with your counselor in January, February, we hopefully got to see a copy of your transcript that lists all the classes you've ever taken in high school and all of your grades. And colleges are going to want to see that. So the process of requesting that is we have a transcript request form, which we're going to go over once school begins next year. But basically, you have to complete this form every time we release your transcript to a college. Is it annoying? Yes, but it's the law. Like, it's something that we have to do. We have to have a signature every time we send it. And we really don't send transcripts until the first day of school, unless you have a crazy situation. And the reason why that is because your senior year classes won't be on there. If you ask us for a transcript in July, it's not going to have any senior year classes on it, and colleges will want to see that. So if you do need a transcript before then, just reach out to your counselor and let us know. But other than that, don't stress about transcripts. It's a very easy thing, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we come back to school in the fall. And then the next thing I want to talk about is a resume. So what a resume is it's like a professional document that enables, it's like one page, and enables a person to look at that and get a picture of who you are as a student. So Lanaya in the chat asked if resumes are required for applications. Not always, but sometimes they are. And I'll tell you guys, I don't think they're typically required for college applications as much. Where we see that they're required is scholarship applications. So it's a good idea to start working on one now over the summer so you can kind of take stock of the things you have, like accomplishments, volunteer work, jobs, different things like that. And it's easy to have one now and sort of add to it as you grow through college and things like that. So it's a good idea to get that started now. And how to create one, Career Cruising has a tool. Miss Eris loves Career Cruising and their tool on there. To be honest, I don't like it. And you can just Google, if you search for student resume template, you'll get some like Word documents that you can kind of download to your computer and then plug in your information. And if you guys needed help with doing this, or you wanted your counselor to look it over, we're more than happy to look at any of that stuff if you guys wanted to send it our way. So I think that's about it for resumes. I know we're running low on time. So Miss Eris, are you ready to talk about the SAT and ACT?
Yep.
All right, go for it.
Okay, well, the theme of today is COVID changes. So I'm going to continue to say that. And this makes it very difficult, and I know that, but virtually you're going to almost have to have this list of colleges you want and look at them one by one and see, you know, are they test optional? I know most of the state schools have said there's SAT, ACT test optional for next year, but if you're going to Wyoming State, you know, I don't know. So what you'd have to do is individually check each of those schools that you're interested in and see what they want. Now, if some school wants it, or sometimes your SAT is tied to a scholarship, like they want a certain GPA and a certain test score, and those colleges aren't deviating on that, and they still want it. This is what the College Board put on their website. anticipated, which I crack up when I see that, upcoming SAT tests. Personally, I think they're going to happen by the trends that are going nationwide in terms of things opening up. But these are the dates. So when you take the test, you get about 4 schools too. So as you go into it, by those dates, you should know the schools that you want to apply to, and you can get your free scores sent. Because if you wait and you miss that time window, it's going to cost you about $15 a score to send them. The date to sign up is usually about 6 weeks before. So 6 weeks before August 28th is probably somewhere in the middle of July. So you're going to have to go on College Board and figure that out. You also have to realize that the score report, meaning what you actually earned on the test and to know your score, isn't going to come for 4 to 6 weeks after that date. So when you look at August 28th, probably September 28th, the soonest you're going to get it. You might say, well, okay, what does that matter? Because if October 1st or November 1st is your deadline for the application and that school needs an SAT, then you got to make sure you're not only going to take the test and pay for it on time, you're going to have to make sure you get the scores at a time that it's still fair to submit them and meet the early deadlines or whatever you want. So if you haven't already taken the SAT and you really want to do it, I would really aim for that August test, because that's the one that's guaranteed to like get you in before any deadlines. So what is it? School? Yeah, you should be sending your scores with the test. It's easier, but if you took it last year or sometime or in school, you can still log into your College Board account and send your scores to whatever schools you want to send them to. If you think you qualify for a fee waiver, which one of the biggest criteria is free and reduced lunch, reach out to your counselor and we can give you the information for that. And then the other thing, I see some of these names on here. You have some interest in sports. This is kind of a quick breakdown. You actually have to send your transcript to the NCAA. And in the past, you also had to send your standardized test, but for your year and the current juniors and the seniors this year, they didn't have to do that. But to qualify, you still have to meet a certain GPA. So you send your transcript at the beginning of your senior year, showing that you're at least taking the 16 core courses. And when they say core, they mean pretty much English, math, science, social studies, foreign language. So if you took weight training and you got an A, that is not part of that GPA. That 2.3 you need for Division I is just from the 16 core courses that you took. So like a lot of us take a PE here and there or whatever to like boost your GPA. That's going to be in your high school GPA. That's going to be in your graduation GPA, but it's not going to be in your NCAA GPA. So it's important to know. And then Division II is a 2.2 for 16 courses. That's really no big significant difference. Division III has no GPA or SAT requirements, but they also do not give athletic scholarships. Most students who go to a Division III and play sports get money because they give them for their academic grades. Not meaning you have to be like some super top of your class person, but I've seen merit scholarships for athletes who have like a 2.7 or better, 3.0 or better, but that's kind of how they fund those students. They're not allowed to give scholarships in Division III. Does anybody have any questions about that?
All right, I know we're just about out of time, guys. So I just wanted to put in a plug real quick. If you guys don't know Mrs. Kidwell of Chesapeake College Plan, she is an amazing resource. She's going to have her last meeting for juniors on Friday, and she is kind of like an extension of us in the guidance office. She can help you out with all things college application. One thing she's really good at is helping students fill out their FAFSA, helping you apply for financial aid. She's like a wizard when it comes to that stuff. So if you want to connect with her, there's her email, and I will email this out to you guys too. And she can meet with you individually, or next year, I think she works over the summer, but she can let you know if you reach out to her. But and next year she'll have like lunch meetings. Fingers crossed, we'll be in the building, and that'll be a thing we'll be able to have, because she's a great resource. And just some other things, if you guys haven't already, you can sign up for our class of 2022 text messages, and I'll send out things like, hey, sign up for the SAT, today's the deadline, that kind of thing. We post stuff on Twitter. And if you guys have questions, contact your counselor, email us, you can call us. We're here to help, because a lot of times students spread rumors and you're so worried about what everybody else is doing. Another piece of advice, if I could tell you to do anything, is to focus on you, because all your friends are going to be applying to different schools and they're going to have different requirements. And if you're talking about applications and they're like, oh, well, I'm doing this, or I have to write this essay, or I have to fill out this form, and you don't have to do that for your school, it may send you into panic. So put your blinders on and keep focused on the things that you have to do and be organized and have those lists. And we are here to help. Keep in mind, though, we do work over the summer, but we don't work every day. So if you guys email us, we may not be able to get back to you ASAP, but we definitely will. And just plan ahead. Don't ask for things the last minute, because don't forget, while you're only working on your stuff, we've got about 90 seniors each to take care of. So make sure you're giving us time so we can make sure that we take care of everybody and give them everything they need. So do you guys have any last minute questions today? You can put them in the chat or you can ask them, doesn't matter. Nothing? All right, guys, we want to thank everybody for their time today. And if you guys need anything, let us know.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a great day.